everybody. We're about to get started. Okay. Please take your seats. Okay. Welcome to the 2017 Mutbeit Din competition, and thank you to everybody joining us today and watching on the live stream. Before we begin the competition, please turn off your cell phone so that we do not interrupt the presentations. We are in the Abella 2 division. The teams competing in this division are Jack and Barrack Hebrew Academy, Herzliya High School, Denver Jewish Day School, Robert M. Barron Academy, and Katz Yeshiva High School. We'd like to thank the judges who are not only here with us today, but have invested time and thought into reading and providing feedback on your written decisions. I'd like to invite the judges to each stand and introduce themselves to the room.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Rabbi Ari Vernon. I am the Judaics Department Chair at the Henry Wiener School here in Houston.
Good morning. I'm Ariel Rosen. I'm actually from Montreal. I am the Judaics Director of Beth Yesharim Day School here in Houston.
Thank you so much. The competition works as follows. Each team will have 9 minutes for presentation, and there will be 9 minutes for Q&A. Our timekeeper is Rabbi Benji Horowitz. He will give each team a 1-minute warning and a 30-second warning. Even if you are mid-sentence, you must stop. You do not need to use your full 9 minutes for presentation, and the judges do not need to use their full 9 minutes for questions. There will be a 5-minute break in between each team, and at the start of the break, the timekeeper will invite the next team to go set up on the stage. There will also be one longer break midway through the competition. After the final team has presented, there will be a lunch break, and the judges will deliberate, followed by a closing ceremony at 12:30 in Sam Houston. For those watching the live stream, to view the closing ceremony, go to Prisma CJDS YouTube channel at 12:30 Central. Thank you all, and b'hatzlacha. The first team up is Jack and Barrack Hebrew Academy.
Shalom, and welcome to the Barrack Beit Din. Mr. Shalom, you seem to be quite distressed on the phone when you called this meeting. What seems to be the problem you want us to look at?
All right, let me explain. I was driving to the supermarket one afternoon to pick up some cookies, and as I was safely driving along, I got T-boned by Ms. Rubenstein here's car from the opposite lane of traffic. Not only was I not able to retrieve my cookies from the store, I had to be in the hospital for so long and miss more work than can ever be allowed. When my rabbi visited me in the hospital, they suggested coming to you, the Beit Din, to settle this once and for all. I was badly wronged in this situation, and someone should pay for this.
Oh, how terrible. Good thing you're feeling better. Ms. Rubenstein, does this accurately portray the situation?
This may show his side, but there is a lot more to the story than that. This wasn't just any old car, this was the Eliva, the newest self-driving car from Eliva Industries. The car has no possible controls from the driver, so I was just relaxing when the car seemingly went out of control. Only later, after speaking to surrounding witnesses, did I realize that my car only swerved to save the life of a pedestrian who walked into the street without looking and then ran away. I did nothing wrong, and Eliva Industries should be the one paying for all the damage caused by their car.
This case seems to be more complicated than we thought. There are a lot of halachic damages happening here, each with different consequences.
There must be tsar, compensation for pain, because it's obvious to see that Mr. Shalom went through a painful situation.
And the compensation for pain, as the Gemara explains in Bava Kama 83b, would be however much one would be willing to pay to avoid the pain.
I would pay anything to never go through that again.
Well, that's not necessarily true. And if we need an estimate, we can talk to doctors about the proper amounts. Speaking of doctors, Mr. Shalom is also owed ripoy, payment for medical expenditures, for all those medical bills, just like in the situation in Shemot chapter 21, an assailant in an attack should provide compensation for the treatment of the victim. There, there were probably also physical damages to the car as well.
There were definitely Nazikim, physical damages of the car. I think we can equate the situation to the one in Baba Kama 2-5, when a shore gores in the public domain. In that case, the owner of the shore should pay for half the damages that their animal caused.
What about all of the wages that I lost from this accident?
Excellent question. When it comes to shevet, lost wages, you should get some form of compensation. As Tosafot says on a commentary on Baba Kama 85b, if someone is temporarily injured, but is known that it will make a full recovery, he should be paid minimum wage for every day of work that he missed.
What about Boshet? Should Ms. Rubenstein have to pay for Boshet?
What's Boshet?
Boshet is shame. I think Ms. Rubenstein is not liable to pay for any shame, because, as it explains in the Mishnah in Bava Kama 8.1, in order to be liable for Boshet, there has to be an intention to cause shame. Ms. Rubenstein, did you have any intent to cause shame to Mr. Shalom?
No, not at all. I didn't even know it happened.
So it's just as we thought, no compensation for Boshet.
All right, well, shouldn't the car have anticipated the pedestrian?
Ah, like a Ruach Mitsuya, a common wind. What do you think?
I think it's unreasonable to expect the car to amount for that, or anticipate that the pedestrian, because he was clearly acting out of the ordinary by jaywalking.
Ms. Rubenstein, you bought this car yourself, right?
Yes. Why?
Well, because you are the owner, it means you are its shomeret, its guardian.
Wouldn't that mean Ms. Rubenstein is responsible for the damages caused by the car?
But because Aliva Industries sold me the car, aren't they then responsible for the damages? I mean, I didn't absolve them from liability.
Even though you didn't absolve the company from liability, the Beit Din has decided they are still not responsible for the damages because you, Ms. Rubenstein, are the current owner of the car, and therefore the shomeret for the car.
So then am I responsible for Mr. Shalom's damages?
Well, according to Bava Kama 90, it says that a shomer is responsible for the damages caused by what he or she is meant to guard. However, in this case, the car was self-driving, meaning that you weren't able to have control over the thing that you were meant to guard. This must be a situation of ones, or lack of control.
In Devarim, chapter 22, verses 25 and 26, it states that if a man rapes a woman, the man will die for sinning and not the woman. The reason the woman didn't commit a sin is because she was onus.
In this situation, because the car has no brake or manual override, Ms. Rubenstein is honest because she has no control.
But couldn't that verse be interpreted differently, making Ms. Rubenstein the so-called rapist and myself the victim?
It can be interpreted that way, but since Ms. Rubenstein could not have been in control of the car, we must equate the car as the rapist and Ms. Rubenstein as the victim. The rapist made it possible for the victim to be punished for a crime, that is, adultery or premarital intercourse, just as the car made it possible for Ms. Rubenstein to be punished for the injury of Mr. Shalom. Therefore, the victim is innocent. Ms. Rubenstein is also innocent. But what do we classify the car as?
What do you mean?
I believe the car that should be classified as a short tom, or an ox that has no prior history of goring. It cannot be equated to a pit because it isn't stationary, and it cannot be a fire because, as explained in Bava Kama 2a, that a fire must move randomly, and this car was moved for the purpose of avoiding a pedestrian.
It also cannot be classified as a mavet because, according to Bava Kama 4a, an animal that is mavet uses its teeth to destroy and derives benefit. In this case, Ms. Rubenstein's car didn't derive any benefit from causing damages.
The shore must also have ruach nefesh chaim, which can equate to the car's artificial intelligence. In this letter we received from Aliva Industries, we have learned that this was the first crash of this car model. So, the car must be equated to a short tom because the car had no prior history of crashes, just like an ox had no prior history of goring.
So then who's going to pay for the damage done to my car and for my medical bills?
In Shuvot Igrot Moshe Orach Chaim and Rav Ovadia Yosef in Shuvot Yachavet Da'at, one is allowed to collect insurance from one's insurance provider.
Both cite many different sources that show that investing in insurance does not demonstrate a lack of faith in Hashem. Rather, as the Targum Onkelos points in Devarim 8:18, Hashem gave us the intellect to make wealth. Insurance companies are legitimate businesses, not lucrative gambling platforms.
Okay, I understand that. My rabbi told me to seek a settlement in a Beit Din, but you have told me that because of ones, Ms. Rubenstein is not liable to pay damages. How then can I receive compensation for my injuries? Could I resolve this case in a civil court?
Wait, when I received the invitation to the Beit Din, my rabbi told me I had to appear because Jews are not allowed to settle their differences in secular court.
Yes, you are referring to an idea known as arkaot, found on Daf 88b of Gitin. If one of you were to refuse to settle on a Beit Din, then there's a possibility we could issue a heter arkaot, allowing the case to be transferred to a civil court. If you, Mr. Shalom, wish to pursue further compensation, we recommend that you sue the insurance company directly.
However, the Beit Din recognizes that suing the insurance company is not the usual practice. We therefore rule, similarly to Teshuvot V'Hanagot 344, that since the insurance company will ultimately make compensation, you may sue Ms. Rubenstein directly in civil court.
Well, that solves my issue, but shouldn't the car's programming be changed in some way so it doesn't swerve right into another car again? I wouldn't want anyone to go through what I had to.
Well, it's much more complicated than that. The car acted in the way that it was meant to work in order to avoid killing the pedestrian.
But remember, in cases involving the choice between the lives of two people, halacha dictates that one should remain passive. Take Rambam Yesodei HaTorah, for example, where he explains that if Gentiles ask a group of Jews to choose one person to be handed over to be killed, it would be better that all of them die. After all, as Rabbah asks in Pesachim 25b, why should you determine whose blood is redder?
So it would be better if the car were programmed to kill someone rather than to injure someone else? That doesn't sound right.
The Beit Din does recognize that this case differs, and that it's not between the lives of two people, but rather the life of one person and the injury of another. Therefore, as long as the car can be sure that by swerving it is not killing someone, it would be permissible to swerve into them to save a life.
Alright, but shouldn't the car at least have some sort of emergency override switch or emergency brake? Why let the car make the decisions?
Some means for the driver to override the decisions of the car should be put into place, as it would settle many halachic concerns for who has to pay for damages.
To review this case, we have concluded that Ms. Rubenstein is not liable for any damage because the situation was one of onus, and Aliva Industries isn't responsible because they are not the guardians of the car.
The damages will be paid for by the insurance company, so everything will be covered in the end. Does this sound like a good decision?
Yep, sounds good.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, judges. You have one minute.
Give us just a moment.
Sure.
All right, so first, thank you for your creative presentation. The thing that's most troubling about the way that you, well, not most troubling, but one of the questions that I have about the way you've resolved the case is that in the end, nobody's actually responsible. And as a Beit Din who's been approached for that purpose of assigning responsibility, it seems like that's not been accomplished. So the question to me is, what keeps you from being able to assign any responsibility to anybody involved?
So we do give the responsibility for the insurance companies that they have to pay for the damages. We just don't think it's right to put all of the blame on Rachel or on Aliva Industries because from the halachic sources that we found, they weren't the ones fully responsible. So we do give Mr. Shalom the option of suing in a civil court as well to get further compensation, but we just don't think that through the halachic sources we found it's possible to put full liability onto any of the other members of the case.
So what you're suggesting is that unless you can assign absolute 100% responsibility to a single party, you can't assign responsibility to any party.
Yes.
And do you have a source foundation for that idea?
No.
Okay. And then kind of as a follow-up question to that, if the goal here is to resolve the issues in a halachic context using our chukim and mishpatim, what makes you feel, why are you comfortable saying go and sue the insurance company outside of a Jewish context?
Because we've ruled in the Jewish context that it is one of onus, but obviously Mr. Shalom requires some sort of physical compensation, but we're not able to make that decision. So if he wants compensation, he's allowed to sue her in court so that the insurance company can pay for the rest of his medical expenditures.
Right, so can you guys go more into the detail in you cited a tshuva that basically said you could go to a civil court.
Yeah.
Can you go more into the detail of why that tshuva says it's okay to take your, I guess, previously adjudicated issue, that was resolved according to our halacha, to then go to find an alternative solution in a non-Jewish context?
because the target of the litigation the target of the litigation is the insurance company, but that's not the common practice. You don't go and sue the insurance company if you want more money. The usual dinita melchuta dina is that you sue the other person and then receive compensation directly from the insurance company.
So I'm still trying to understand why then what is it that makes you allowed to basically have your case adjudicated twice?
Because
Shouldn't the answer of the Beit Din be something that kind of be end of conversation?
the insurance company, we don't think it will follow a Beit Din. So in order to receive money from the insurance company, one has to address it in a civil court.
We make the decision that the insurance company are the ones who are liable to pay for the damages. Just we can't be the ones to tell the insurance company how much they have to pay and what to do because it's through a civil court.
Okay, so you are assigning liability. It's to an insurance company, a third party.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's Mr. Shalom's responsibility. All the damages essentially are his because it's his insurance company that ends up paying.
Well, in a civil court, it will be decided just in terms of the law of the land, of how the insurance will be dispersed between Ms. Rubenstein's and Mr. Shalom's.
Okay. So I accept the premise that the insurance company is not Jewish and therefore they can't be bound by a Beit Din and they wouldn't enter into that arbitration by a Beit Din. Oh, maybe they would enter into arbitration by a Beit Din, but that would have to be negotiated separately. So that makes sense. In the end then, does Mr. Shalom end up actually paying for his own damages? Because it's his insurance company that's going to end up paying and he's the one who pays the insurance company to cover him?
Well, the insurance companies is shared risk, right? Everybody contributes to the insurance company, and when someone needs to take out a claim, then the insurance company then pays through the collective funds for that individual. So yes, everybody contributes to the insurance, but since he had an accident, they're the ones who pay him. So yes, you could say that he's paying for his own debt, but his own damages, but it's the insurance company as a collective.
Right, he's also going to end up having higher premiums.
Well, a lot of times in cases of any sort of accident, if you're just involved in the accident, your insurance is going to go up even if you don't have full responsibility over what happened. So it's just the way that the insurance companies work.
Fair enough. Can we move on to how much time do we have left?
3.5 minutes.
3.5 minutes, okay. So I wanted a couple of other questions I had. You categorize the car as a short tom, and because this has never happened before previously with one of these cars, could you make the claim that because of the nature of automotive vehicles and driving, that in a sense everybody knows that it's dangerous to begin with and that it would be a shor muad? Or why would you dismiss that as a possibility?
Because self-driving cars have the intent that it's going to be safer because there's no human input, and it has this sort of computer code for artificial intelligence, and this car had previously no record. It had survived on the market. With no record, you can't expect it to have a crash.
But they've already thought about that by putting in these protocols in the vehicle and its programming that caused it to veer away from the pedestrian and cause the damage to Mr. Shalom's car. So in a sense, the shore is pre-programmed to cause damage.
Well, we still think that because there were no prior cases, because Mr. Rubenstein didn't buy the car expecting it to be programmed to crash into something, as no one buys a car expecting that. And the same way, she didn't totally understand that, she didn't expect it to happen because it's never happened before, because cases like this don't generally occur, which is why she thinks that, this is why she's so confused of why she would be liable, and she thinks the company should be liable. And it has to be a short tom because of this prior crash history that doesn't exist, the same way that there was no goring history. Any animal could turn into a goring animal, and every animal has the risk of being a goring animal, the same way as every car has a risk of having accidents, but because there was no history with this specific car, which has this unique programming, we have to categorize it as a tom.
Except for that it was already predicted. This is already, in a sense, this is actually a ruach matsuya, because it's not a situation that the car didn't anticipate. Right? It's a situation that the car's already kind of set to anticipate. And so to me, it seems like it's kind of more in that expected perspective. Nonetheless, all right. let's let you off the hook. Thank you very much.